Hey y'all. How y'all
Welcome.
doing?
Welcome.
Okay, so
I'm almost out of rum.
Oh, I don't
They
have.
bring like Coke in a what?
I mean, if you're gonna phrase it like that, be prepared for what comes.
Anything's broad.
Trust me, if I had it, I'd bring it to you.
Okay, welcome to DragonCon 2024. Woo! Thank you for coming to Ghostbusters fan panel. Just for a little quick announcement, we are DragonCon is hosting a charity event for arthritis research. Some of us are old. Okay, so.
You're all gonna have knee problems, just face it.
Just face it. So we have our Battle of the Fandoms over there. We have Ghostbusters. Okay.
Anyone, come on, audience.
And then we have the book bucket. We have Supernatural and whatnot. Right now, the undecided pile is winning by $100.
Wow.
Okay, so that was
Good
thanks.
choice.
That was thanks to me. Okay. I have the ability to tell people, hey, donate, and they put it in the bucket.
I'm just happy that you are saying specifically that it's for arthritis research. The writer's track seems to be raising money for arthritis. Like, you'd think that people as pedantic as writers would add that word research.
We're
to the
writers,
end.
not editors. Come
We're
on.
raising money,
Yeah.
charity for arthritis. I don't think it needs our help.
Yeah.
That is kind of the point of having an editor, though.
Yeah, it's
It's
fair.
cool.
We're trying to take up the competition.
But whatever we raise, DragonCon will match. So yay!
Up to
Up to-
$125,000. So
Yes.
yeah, and we matched it last year.
Oh yeah. So
Match it.
woo! And usually with the Battle of the Fandoms, they post like every night who won for that day. So last night the book bucket won. Okay,
Team
so
books.
yeah,
Team
team books. All right, so we are here to talk about Ghostbusters in all its forms, the movies, the animated cartoon. There was a video game at one point, but I think that got canceled.
There's a couple. There's several board games as well.
Several board games. But how did y'all discover, Ghostbusters? Like, I remember being in Thailand, not Thailand, but Okinawa, Japan, and it popped on TV, and me and my dad watched it. Rest his soul, he died on the 14th of this month. But he loved Ghostbusters, so that's what our thing was. We watched Ghostbusters. So, how did y'all discover it?
Literally seeing the commercial and saying, I want to go see that. I mean, I've been a fan since the first one. Like, I've seen all of them except for the last one in the theater, like when it came out, and they haven't disappointed. I mean, from the first one having a weird Bill Murray becoming John Belushi when Slimer hit him, like I don't know how the hell that happened. And I was like, okay, that's Jim Belushi's ghost actually starring in the movie. I don't know if he got royalties for it, but I mean, I've been a fan of it. Like, I think everybody is a fan of Ghost at one point or another, so they're curious about it. So this kind of gives you a fun spin on it, and I think that's why I was drawn to it.
So I'm kind of laughing to myself because I think every panel I've had, they've asked, when did you first discover this or that? And the answer's either been, I don't remember, or last week so I could do this panel. With
Really?
Ghostbusters though, I actually know the exact day. I was about 8 or so, and Ghostbusters was on TV. But before that, earlier in the day, I went ice skating and I fell and hit my head and got concussed. And had to get carried off the ice by some dad that was at the rink and go to the ER and stitches and everything. My parents were going out that night and we were sent to my aunt and uncle to spend the night with the cousins. They felt real comfortable leaving me with someone else despite my recent concussion.
That's parents for the 80s for you, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know, it was a classic 80s parents thing. And then the Ghostbusters was on the TV, and I remember right after the Fear Dog shows up for the first time, I puked my guts out from the concussion, not the dog. But it,
Well, there was a lot of puking in that.
Yeah.
It was Slimer.
but it really speaks to my love for this franchise that did nothing to tarnish the movie for me. It is the rare franchise where I have had a great time and have specific love for every single installation.
Y'all was so young. Opening weekend of the first movie, I was in the seat, and I laughed so hard I fell out of that seat.
Like for real?
Absolutely.
Like for real?
I absolutely.
You were on the floor of the movie theater?
Well,
That's
I was sliding down like this.
Back in the day.
You
My
didn't lose
legs
a
went
leg.
numb and I went quick plump on the floor and I was still laughing. I kid you not. Bill Murray was just so magic. A lot of what he did was improvisation, and they just let it ride. And he's brilliant. And team him up with those guys, and oh my God, it was magic, absolute magic. And every single iteration I've enjoyed. Yeah, I'm not gonna diss any of them, but the original was just has always been my favorite. I've watched it. I don't know how. I have it on disc, and
What do you mean by disc? Are you talking about like laser disc?
All
No,
the
no.
discs.
Okay, the CD.
DVD. And all the discs. I probably had it on VHS back in the day.
Hey,
But,
we had it on beta.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. But yeah, I was in opening weekend. That old. Dinosaurs roamed
Also
the earth.
that old, because I also went to opening weekend.
I don't believe you.
I did, I was 14 and I was at the Citadel in Colorado Springs. And it was packed. The whole theater was like howling. It was awesome,
Yeah.
it was awesome.
Yeah.
There's something like, I feel for people who didn't grow up in the 80s, because going to the movies in the 80s was amazing.
Yeah.
Not all of them have held up well, but
Mhm.
going to movies in the 80s was amazing.
Yeah.
At the same time though, like, I hope you enjoy your seatbelt and bike helmets.
Oh.
People who didn't grow up in the 80s.
Right. Yeah.
See, I'm sorry to reveal my age. I was a little too young. I wanted to go see it, and my big brother got to go see it. He was 8 years older than me, and then he told me how funny it was, and then told me I was too much of a scaredy cat to enjoy it. So naturally, as soon as it was on TV anywhere, it was like I had to see this movie. And I was hiding under my blanket for the first scene with the librarian, but I could not tell my brother that. So I was determined, no matter how scared I got, I would sit through the movie. So I did, and I've been a lifelong Ghostbusters fan ever since.
I would have to say that first scene
Oh yeah.
with that
The
librarian.
librarian.
Oh, yeah. Like, you're like,
We didn't have CGI
That was
like that in the
That was your
80s.
plan.
It was scary.
because they didn't use CGI like we do now, because that was some very damn good.
For the day,
Yeah.
that was some
I
pretty
mean,
awesome
yeah.
stuff.
But when you look at it, like, on a regular, now these smart TVs, you're like, okay, what's going on here? What's this?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, the smart TVs take away some of the magic.
Yeah, I
It
kind of
does,
hate
it really
smart
does.
TVs, honestly.
Please don't tell my brother I was
The
scared.
less you
He
know,
still
the better.
doesn't know.
Right.
I think he knows.
I think he knows. I mean, we don't know your personal handle, so we can't really tell him. So let's talk about the first movie, and some of the characters. Because we have Venkman, we have Ray, we have Egon, and then we have Winston, the four guys. Who do you think you identify with more? If you were going to be a Ghostbuster, which one of those four would you identify with? Mike?
Ironically enough, I'm trying to find his name. I identify with Rick Moranis' character.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he was kind of like, I love Rick
I'm
Moranis.
definitely a Lewis Tully. Because he was probably one of my favorite characters in the movie because he was just like because I felt like he was me, just like kind of awkward and kind of just trying to trying to be popular, then getting eaten by a dog. Wait, not that part. But yeah, I really enjoyed. I liked his performance, and I really thought that.
But he was like also talking about people's business though at the party. Like, don't tell them about how much I make. No.
I mean, he was an accountant. It's like he was socially awkward, which I can relate to. It's like social awkwardness it presents in different ways.
Okay.
My sister and I both watch Bob's Burgers, and we have this like long running joke that like everybody thinks they're Louise, but actually we're all Tina. Thank you. If you got there, you got there. And with Ghostbusters, like I always want to think that I'm a Venkman, but also we're all Ray. you know?
Yes.
We're all the kind of blundering, confused, but like benign about it kind of person. So, yeah, that's probably where I'm at. One or the other, depending on the day.
I love the line, oh, slime, save me some. Somebody blows his nose and you want
You
to
got
keep
it, Ray.
Right. So, honestly, I think I'm a Winston because I will believe anything you tell me if there's a paycheck in it. Just like I will write anything you tell me if there's a paycheck in it.
So pragmatic.
Absolutely, you know? And then later, he's in Ecto 1 saying, you know, the raising of the dead. He's quoting the Bible, right?
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
he's like, he's not just a stiff. He knows what's happening here, and he's the one who like opens the window and saying, this is biblical.
Yeah, what I find really interesting about that character, he wasn't supposed to be some, you know, dude looking for a job. He actually had a backstory. He was supposed to be an Air Forceman coming in.
Oh, okay.
And so they took that part of the backstory out.
Ah, I did not know that.
Yeah. That was weird too.
I would say a cross between Lewis and Ray. Like, even before you said we all think we're, you know, like men, but I was like, no, I'm actually Ray. Except I'm a little more awkward. I try really hard, and then sometimes you're like, whoa, I just went flat. So a mix between the two.
This should really be a question that you ask our friends.
I collect spores, mold, and fungus. No, when I was actually, yeah, I always kind of, because I was a bit awkward and neurodivergent, I identified with Egon. I never wanted to be Vinkman. I just really had a crush on Ray.
Yeah.
I thought he was so cute. But yeah, it was definitely Egon.
I think everyone relates to Ray because he is kind of that everyday man.
Yeah.
Right.
And he has curiosity, which is really fun.
And he's kind of childlike too, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh.
He's like all scientist and has no filter.
Yeah, he has no filter. And then, you know, I would like to identify myself with Winston, because growing up, yeah, we had the Bankman, but he seemed kind of schwarmy. And I'm like,
He seemed kind of what?
schwarmy, like a used car salesman.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
smarmy.
oh,
He's
yeah.
smarmy.
And every time he talked to, like, you know, Dana, I was like,
Yeah, it's pretty problematic today. It's one of those things though that if you watched it as a kid in the 80s or 90s, like you didn't notice that he's creeping all the time. You
Oh,
just,
you mean the telekinesis test?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I thought he
the
was
teleki-
creepy even in the 80s.
watching the telekinesis test today is rough.
Yeah.
But in Afterlife they finally got to like flip that around and
That was awesome.
that was awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
Awesome. So like the gate master and the key
Yeah, key
master.
master.
Key
He
master.
in the gate.
Yeah, that flew over my head as a kid. It really did until I watched it
You were
again.
a
I was
kid.
like,
Wait, what do you mean it flew over your head?
Is there some subtext to those
In
names?
the
Uh-huh.
lock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize what that meant.
I don't
It is not
understand.
Dragon Con After Dark yet, so.
I didn't say it.
We don't have
Should
children
I
here.
videotape here?
Anybody under like 18?
What do you mean? We're just talking.
yes.
We're talking about keys to opening gates.
Right, yes.
We're not doing something anything bad.
Well, but the thing is, they explained it in like the third movie too.
In
so-
Afterlife.
In Afterlife, you're like, well, when you rewatch the first one, you're like, oh.
I mean,
Oh.
they literally do deed after they introduce themselves, so it's like.
Yeah, and then you get to
You're like,
see.
gay, okay.
Yeah. So a big bad of the first one is Gozer. Right?
Gozer.
Gozer.
With a Z.
Those are the Gozerians.
Those are the Gozerian.
Brian, shush. Sorry,
Hey, do you
sorry
want
about you.
So, the actress that they got to play Gozer also reprised her role in Afterlife. That woman did not age.
No,
How
no,
did that happen?
That's
No,
not
she was
her.
Proof that she is in fact a demon.
That's not her.
That's not her?
No, that's actually what's her name? The young actress.
Olivia Wilde.
Olivia Wilde.
Really? Because I read somewhere that was actually her.
No, maybe they added with CGI or something. They might have done like an
Look like
overlay,
her.
but it's Olivia
Yeah.
Wilde.
Okay. My bad.
It's okay. Olivia Wilde, like you never looked at her and were like, you look just like Gozer, and then she shows up in that movie, and you're like, oh damn.
Yeah. And they used,
I
I'm
looked
gonna butcher pronouncing her name, but the most amazing voice actress for Gozer, and I'm gonna Yeah, I can't think of her name, but she was also in The Expanse, and she's amazing.
It's a
Oh,
cameo.
Aristobula?
If you go to Olivia
Yeah,
Wilde,
she-
you probably
she-
know that
Actress
way.
who played Aristobula?
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
remember her
there
name.
Yeah.
Olivia Wilde moves her credit.
Okay. Oh, she was uncredited?
Yeah, she was uncredited.
Did a great job.
She nails it.
We'll give her credit now.
Yeah, we're gonna give her credit now.
Looking like an 80s modern rock star.
The flat top.
The flat top,
Flat
yeah.
top, the boots, and like the really, she looked like a weird David Bowie. Like,
Yes.
Oh yeah, she's a David Bowie like
Much like
big
the original
time.
Gozer.
Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So,
thought David Bowie was an influence for the original Gozer.
Good.
And
I'm
He should have.
paintings,
Yeah.
so they kind of rehashed the story in Afterlife. So
Yep.
how did y'all react to that?
I
Was it a great, bridging over, or did you prefer, had an original story instead of?
What do you mean
Oh, go ahead.
rehash?
Because you had a lot from the first one. You had Gozer, you
The
had
nostalgia
the
thing.
nostalgia thing.
Sure.
That caused me not to like that movie as much as the other, ones. I mean, I watch it.
I don't know. I loved Afterlife.
Yeah, I did too.
I actually.
I mean, because I'm a sucker for movies that give you that one moment that you can't help but cry at, and like
Yeah.
when Ray helped them with capturing Gozer again, like his ghost came out, I was just like, I was a blubbering mess.
I mean, Egon.
Egon.
Egon came back. I was a blubbering mess. I couldn't. I was just like, come on, man, really.
I have daddy issues, so it was a heartbreaking movie for me.
The thing is, that movie came out at a time when nostalgia was really having a moment, starting with Stranger Things being just, in worship of the 80s and that time in film. But, if you look at something like Jurassic World Dominion, that's how you do nostalgia badly. I think it's cool if you're not into movies that are about nostalgia. They're not for everyone. But if you are, I feel like Ghostbusters Afterlife is that's how you do it right.
Yeah.
This is how you do everything right if you're going to play in that particular sandbox. But then Frozen Empire is much more, let's make a new
Yeah.
world building
I
thing.
enjoyed the hell of that.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I was once a 15-year-old child. I wanted to be her, and y'all are benching me?
Well, and they've got the science lab and the experiments on ghosts. You see how it could be a part of something bigger going on in the world.
As soon as I saw that lab, I was like, oh, this is gonna go wrong.
Anyone have Bioshock? Oh my god, they're all gonna break out. It's gonna be terrible.
And that's why I love Afterlife, is I was that little kid. I was the little nerd that got picked on by everyone.
No, not you.
Absolutely.
You're cool to me, man.
Well, now.
Not,
Not
we
when I was
grew
a
up
little
together,
kid.
I'd be like, your best friend, man.
No, I had to get in a few fights and things like that, but
I'd be like the little sister that comes out of nowhere.
That's what kind of made it cool, because here is the girl who is always the butt of every kid's joke in school, and because she's the nerd and all this stuff, and then she kicks ass and takes names with the little
yeah.
side seat and the.
Oh God, who wants I want a side seat.
I want a
yeah.
rumble
Let's
seat.
go to
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can I mention about Mackenzie Grace's character?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
In Afterlife. So I have two daughters who are on the autism spectrum, and that was I think what I think is amazing about Ghostbusters, and you talked about who do you see yourself in? That was when my kids got the chance to see themselves in a Ghostbusters movie. And there's actually a super cool nod. I don't know if you noticed that in the film, the shoes that she wears in Afterlife are Billy shoes. Billy shoe, the brand Billy was invented by a paraplegic who's in a wheelchair, and they're sneakers, high top shoes that have a zipper. And they've really been embraced by the autism community, especially people who struggle with sensory issues or fine motor skills. My kids have worn Billy shoes all their lives. So it wasn't just that, the girl, the way she is with jokes is the way my children are. It wasn't just that, it was those are my shoes. That girl's literally wearing the same shoes as me. How cool was that for my
Well
kids?
done. Well
Right.
done.
Yeah.
I love the costuming of all the movies.
Okay.
I think that with Afterlife, the cool thing about Afterlife is that it shows you But what I also loved was that if you look at the first two movies and all the iterations that came after that before 2016, we don't really see much about the families, and this shows how being that kind of person who has this kind of passion like Egon did, what does that do to the family?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that aspect. I love the messy family aspect.
It's kind of like being in the military because, you know, growing up in the military, you have a parent that's always away, and so you feel like they don't love you because they're doing their job, but you don't understand as a child, and you grow up like
I
resenting
still don't
God.
understand.
Well,
as
in
an
the sense of
adult.
responsibility as the parent and the sense of loss as the kid, you kind of see both
Yeah.
sides of it.
I pretty much lived in that family. My dad was very much an individualist and wanted to break away and do his own thing, and did, and that kind of almost left the family behind, kind of did leave the family behind, but he's the reason that I became the person I became. And he supported me when I had very little support, and it almost tore the family apart, but it didn't, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, very much.
Well, it also
Yeah.
shows you how I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say the brief image that we get of Egon's being still alive in Afterlife, like the beginning of the movie, where he's like trying to capture him, it doesn't work, and he makes the decision to like, okay, I'm gonna die, but I'm gonna make sure that whoever comes behind me can make this work.
Right.
And it's like, how do you make a character who's not even there seem like he's there, and make it just like, you know, like right in front of you. And
Right.
I just love that the fact that they made him like he's still Egon, but he's a more driven Egon. Like he's like, you know, I mean, we saw him making everything, but then you see him actually put it into action and not work, and then him figuring out, okay, this still needs to happen, so I'm going to sacrifice myself and make sure that whoever comes after me knows what they're doing. So I
That's
mean,
the hope. That's the hope.
Well, and the way
Yeah,
he kept
almost
him like a person that wasn't, even though he wasn't there, was that his daughter actively hated him. Like,
right.
that hate was another character until the end of that movie.
Until she saw like how much he really
Mhm.
loved her. He's been like, you know, stalking her
I
in the
just,
shadows.
I
Yeah.
think that the genuine love and care that the filmmaker, I mean, Jason Reitman obviously having a personal connection to the film, but like, it comes through in the movie. How much love and admiration and respect the new movies have for the old movies.
Yes.
And incidentally, this is maybe one of your questions. I don't mind the all-female Ghostbusters.
Oh, yes, that was my
We're
budget.
getting there. We're
Yeah,
getting
we
there, I'm
are gonna
assuming.
get there.
I just don't wanna talk about it like it never happened, because that's rude.
It happened, and like the thing is, the reason why I love the all-female cast is because my niece saw herself, when she first saw it, she saw herself as a female Ghostbuster.
Yep,
And when I told her, hey, we're gonna watch Ghostbusters, she's like, oh, they made a part 2 for the female one?
I wish.
I was like, no, sweetheart, we're watching the original. And she watched for like the first 5-10 minutes, she was like, and I walked away.
And what you just said, I wish they'd done a part 3 where Ghostbusters had occurred and they did it a new way, better. And I had no problem with the plot. The action scenes in the CG were great. The acting was great, except when they tried to do certain sections of humor that seemed to fall woefully flat. And I can't put my finger on exactly where, but there's 2 kinds of humor out there. I love one kind, and the other kind just makes me uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And when they were interviewing Helmsworthy, that made me uncomfortable. You know, and that humor just did not work for me.
I think that the female-led Ghostbusters film is one of the most feminist movies I've ever seen in my life. And what you're describing is the female gaze.
No.
Yeah. Instead of the male gaze.
No, I
Those
get it.
women are, like, they're objectifying Chris Hemsworth, as we
Yeah.
all have.
Oh, yeah.
Regardless of, you know, preferences. I believe that was extremely deliberate to put
I get that, but
that
the-
flip in.
And
I
it
don't think
wasn't-
it was
it
a joke
wasn't-
for you though. I
No.
think it was a joke for the
It-
women who'd been in that interview on the other side.
And
Yeah.
it wasn't the feminist approach that bothered me. It was that the jokes fell flat.
I mean,
For me, the jokes just did not quite work.
the dying is easy, comedy is hard part. The movie I actually laughed the hardest at rewatching all of them was Ghostbusters 2016, and my favorite scenes actually were the interview, because I will never ever again be able to look at it and go, which one of these pictures makes me look more like a doctor, playing the saxophone or listening to the saxophone? And the synesthesia jokes that he did.
The rubbing his eye through the empty frames.
Yes,
of the glasses.
and the covering his ears when he didn't want to see something. Like,
that was funny. That was funny.
it got it, but here's full disclosure, I got into an online discussion with a man on the internet
I'm so sorry.
about
Oh,
Ghostbusters 2016.
So sorry.
And he told me how the movie was so blatantly sexist.
Wait, what?
The 2016 was so blatantly sexist and man-hating, and there's no misogyny in Ghostbusters, and the Janine comments coming back. It's like, did you watch Venkman in any of the original films?
Yeah.
It's an interesting discourse, and if you ever want to get a lot of engagement on Twitter or Threads, mention that you like Ghostbusters Answer the Call, the 2016 one.
My sanity is already hanging on by a very thin thread. I can't.
Yeah, it is a dark place.
No.
I did appreciate, by the way, when
Never go to bed.
Kamala Harris's campaign wrote "Answer the Call" as their slogan, and I'm like,
Huh?
anybody? Hello, the all-female Ghostbusters? Get it?
Yeah.
Anybody? Twitter?
Can we just talk in it for a second on the all-female Ghostbusters about Kate?
Kate
Yes.
So if you look, I was thinking about this because I think about the panels.
Holtzman?
Yeah,
Holtzman.
Holtzy. Before I try to do my homework beforehand just to make sure I'm not a complete idiot. And if you look at the very first Ghostbusters, that's when you really started to see that it was okay to be nerdy. Like,
Yeah.
in the 80s, it was not always okay to be nerdy, but that kind of changed. And then you come full circle to 2016, and she is the coolest character in that film.
She really is.
Yeah.
She just embraces,
Like the one scene where she was using the gauntlets to go through the ghosts.
The shredders?
The
Yeah,
shredders.
The shredders.
Yeah. And then, when they were destroying her equipment, my babies!
Right.
Safety goggles.
Safety goggles were for dudes.
Yeah.
But like my favorite character of all that was Patty.
Oh my
'Cause
God, yes.
I identify myself with Patty because I am that one friend. Yes, I am that black friend with my whole group that will actually go to bat for you, and I will set things on fire if they make you sad.
And do you know where all the deaths and all the crazy dead history happened? Because that was also a cool thing about Patty. Like, every one of them was a nerd in some way, and I love that it celebrated it versus, like, we've come a long way
Right.
in celebrating nerds.
Right.
And
yeah,
my,
like-
my favorite line in that my favorite joke delivery in that entire movie is when that absolutely legit scary ghost rides away on the subway, and there's this pause, and then Patty goes, "That's gonna be like the third scariest thing on that train."
That was great.
That's amazing.
And yes, to answer your question, yes, I do know like some scary facts about Macon, and we have tunnels underneath Macon that most people don't know about. And also there was like a shrine in the graveyard. There was a voodoo shrine, and the coroner decided to mess with it.
Let me just make a quick note about that. For
Did he die like
There-
the next day?
Oh no, see, Leon Jones is very loved in Macon. I think all the spirits protect him, really, because he does a lot of charity work. So they're like, oh, you messed up this shrine of voodoo work. We'll
It
forgive
usually
you.
doesn't go well.
It usually doesn't go well, but he's like fine. Of course, he did lose a head during one of the crime scenes. But back to what we're talking about. So, yeah, the history of New York, like, was beautifully done. Now, do you think if they did a Ghostbusters, would it set well in any other city, or would just New York be?
I mean, I think New York is a character in Ghostbusters. My one sort of complaint about Afterlife was it was missing that key component.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, maybe if they did it in another city, we might change our mind, but it's so tied to the city itself that I missed it. That's what I liked about Frozen Empire a little bit more than Afterlife, just in terms of setting.
I think it's like Spider-Man, like any big city could host a Ghostbusters movie. Spider-Man in the country is super useless.
I think you could like swing
Like,
from.
just think about him
Right.
in a, like standing in like a cornfield, like where I live. He'd just be like,
Is there any that many crime in like the rural area? Because
oh yeah, I mean, it's a lot of meth labs.
Cops get stolen all the time. The
Trust me, I live in
only,
a rural area, there's crime.
the only other city I could see Ghostbusters like being done in is like Paris, or somewhere that has a history of like dark things. Like
Oh.
Paris has catacombs.
Paris Ghostbusters, I would watch the crap out of that.
Yeah,
It would be very
definitely.
French.
Chicago Ghostbusters.
I didn't have a problem with
Chicago
Afterlife for that reason.
Crazy.
I thought it was kind of interesting that it wasn't,
Yeah, it took us out.
it wasn't jarring, but I found it interesting that it wasn't in New York.
I mean, if it was an urban setting, I would rather it be like somewhere. It has to be somewhere that has caves, because it has to be something that's somewhere that has somewhere that you can hide things. Because it's like you can't just like look out and see nothing. You just have like have traps buried in the ground.
It's
It's
like,
like,
it's like, hey, well, there's a goat right there.
but it's like if you have
Paris
something
and
that's
London
like
would be fantastic.
that's like caverns and places that you have to go into and find clues that make sounds. It's
The
like
Paris catacombs would be fantastic.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
The young man in the back.
I was just gonna say, another good place for a good Ghostbusters film that would be pretty good would probably be New Orleans.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
I kind of feel like in
That's
New
it.
Orleans, like we should just let the ghosts have New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like
They kinda already do.
specifically, yeah, exactly. I don't think
They already do.
Ghostbusters go in there and come out alive. I think that we should just let that be.
When they go and they say, nope.
Yeah.
And they walk out.
The New
Exactly.
Orleans Ghostbuster movie is 4.5 minutes long.
What if we did it as a series, like different cities as a series, like like TV shows?
That would be fun.
That would be.
It's like Slimer shows up, they grab him and grease the grill with him, and then
Right,
they go crazy.
yeah.
Yeah. You'd need like one season per city.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would
one
be
season
fun.
in Chicago, yeah,
Yeah.
one season in Savannah, one season in Washington, somewhere.
Savannah.
Somebody
Go to
call a
Boston.
producer for
Savannah.
Christ.
Do y'all know the producers? Anybody? Okay. Does anybody else have a question? Have a question to ask? Talk about any favorite moments of any of the movies? Yes, sir.
What do you think about Ghostbusters 2? We've not been on.
Oh.
Okay,
He
so
is Vigo.
So growing
Everything you
up,
do is horrible. I just want you to know that.
yeah, growing up, I was like, so did she have a baby with Tully? When growing up, and then I watched it again, I was like, oh no, she got married. Okay, that's
I wish we'd gotten to meet him.
yeah.
That should be the next movie, is they meet the ghost of Sigourney Weaver's husband.
Why you say ghost? What if he's still alive?
Right, because I think it'd be fun to, anyway.
Peter
I-
Won't killed him.
Maybe she
I
killed
feel
him.
sorry for Ghostbusters 2, because it is a perfectly solid B- movie.
Yeah.
It's just that Ghostbusters was an A.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so everybody looks at Ghostbusters 2 and is like, what a huge disappointment compared to the original. And I feel that, but it's also like, if you only watched 2, you'd be like, what a perfectly solid good time I've just had.
Right. See, so the only reason it got that I think the B- was because it was a little bit too similar to the first movie. I think if they'd broken out and done something a little different, it would have been a bit better. There was actually a previous script for that movie that, from what I've read, several of the cast members signed on to, and then when they changed the script, it was like, wait, what?
I didn't sign this. It's like reading a contract. You're like
Right.
Bilbo
Oh, yeah.
Baggins, just making
Yeah.
sure. It's like
I think that description though of an A versus a B movie, B plus. I think Ghostbusters was an A plus, and just a B plus. You just have.
I think.
Right.
It's really hard to
I'm glad we
follow
have
up
it
that.
though. Like
Yeah.
there are some
Oh, no.
sequels where you're like, gosh, I wish they'd never made this. Like, why does
Right.
Godfather 3
No, I'm
have
not-
to
I'm not
exist?
there.
Oh.
But I do not feel that way about Ghostbusters 2.
I just watched it the other night. It stands up.
I think some of it is the best thing about Ghostbusters is in the first movie, the villain of the movie isn't really the ghost per se. I mean, yes, there's sort of that in Gozer, but it's Peck.
Yeah,
it's
Peck.
a human and it's
Right.
more relatable. And I think Vigo is a bit lame in comparison. He's just a painting.
What?
Don't.
He is Vigo.
He is lame-o. And I will stand by it.
Just missed his kitten.
I know, he was just very one note, and I think that kind of let it down storytelling wise. It's always more interesting when you have.
Yeah, he seemed like
some
a very
humor.
two-dimensional character.
Yes. Thank you.
Ooh, nice segue.
My
And the mayor's assistant was kind of thin in
Yeah,
that
it
he
just-
wasn't
it
as
wasn't-
good as Peck.
It didn't have that same interplay that
Right.
William
I
Afton
love
had
that
with
Peck
Venkman.
showed up in the latest movie.
Frozen Empire.
Yeah, Frozen Empire. Yeah.
Not a great name.
No.
I mean, at least it gave us a Bobby Brown banger. I mean, that song was really good.
Which one? Oh, the Bobby
Which
Brown song
movie?
from Ghostbusters
Too
2.
hot to handle, too cold to hold. They call it
Yeah.
Ghostbusters and they in control. Yeah, I'm not gonna do the whole thing, sorry.
I think we want you to do the whole thing. 'Cause I think people are-
Should we take a vote, like as a room?
So who wants to hear Mike's?
No,
just kidding.
That's way too many hands.
But yeah, the story for 2, it did kind of fall flat for me because I was like, so you want a new body and you're gonna have it a child? What? What if you wanna?
Who wants to go through puberty twice?
Right.
I mean, right?
Oh, shit.
And for your dad, you picked this guy?
Yeah.
It seemed like a bad prequel to Boss Baby. It's like you're gonna be a
Yeah.
child. Like how are you gonna do anything? You're a child.
Yeah, like okay, I'm gonna take over this baby. Change my nappies. But we can't really talk about 4 because you haven't seen it, have you? Frozen Empire, huh?
Who?
What?
Have you seen Frozen Empire?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Weekend.
Oh, you did opening weekend? Okay, never mind. I thought somebody said they didn't see it.
Nope.
So,
He said he didn't see the theater.
oh, my bad.
It's like I liked it, but I don't think I liked how they made her character like Mackenzie Grace's character like
Phoebe.
Phoebe. Yeah, made her so looking for. I understand that she's a nerd, but to be taken in by the other ghosts like so quickly is like I didn't like how that went down.
I mean, her connection, like how she bonded with the
With the ghost playing chess and the
Melody.
Yeah, I'm just like the whole thing is like I didn't buy into Melody being like that whole dynamic being that easy to
Yeah.
manipulate her like that.
I bought it. And maybe that was me projecting. My kids are not great at friendships. They are not great at, well, they haven't done romances yet, but I mean, I thought that was a very, like, queer-coded relationship. I was so there for it. But, like, I can see someone who has never had friendship come easily to them being kind of taken in by the attention, especially in that moment in her
Okay.
life with her family.
I mean, yeah,
That's a valid point.
I mean, her first friend was podcast. I was kind of like,
Which
Podcast
she
is
did
the
no
main-
work in that friendship. I mean, podcast just follows her around and is like, I'm your friend, I'm your follower now, I'm going where you go. Like, there was no effort,
from her part, she was like,
Right.
where's this kid following you?
Right. Like, she's not a person that seemed socially adept. And so to have her, it checked out to me to have, like, this smart chess playing ghost take an interest in her. That made sense to me.
And
Just me, though.
So no one had parents like Podcast and Lucky and like, everyone followed them.
Well,
I was
Lucky
like,
had it. Well, yeah, you have to
She's
think
on
about
an
it.
internship.
Yeah, she's on internship.
Yeah.
Oh, she's already.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I keep thinking that they're still in high school.
And
I feel like
podcast
if
is
Well,
podcast-
is still in high school.
That's
I
right,
feel like
podcast-
podcast parents were not that involved based on Afterlife. Like, these are not well supervised
Redone
children.
80s parents here.
I mean, he's like, I was like, okay, so you're just gonna wander off, be with some random dude. Yeah, he's your teacher, but you're gonna have an adventure with him, and then you're having an adventure with this young girl. I need somebody to introduce me to
I would
these
let my
kids.
kids have an adventure with Paul Rudd any
Oh,
day
yeah.
of the week. Paul Rudd shows up at the house, he's like, hey, can I take your kids to do science? I'd be like, of course you can.
Go.
Take Brian too, he's a lot.
But it's also, in Afterlife, it's a small town, people know each other. I live in a small town, and the amount of people that are like, oh yeah, just take the kids with you. I didn't grow up in this town. I moved here as an adult, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm not taking your kids. And people are like, why? What are you gonna do, Lisa? But it's just, it's the way that people live there. Oh yeah, take the kids. I know where you are. I know who where you live and who you are, and I know your family, and they don't think about it the same way.
I'd like to think I do know where my kids are, though. Like, locationally, but I hear what you're saying about small towns.
Even if you only have, like, my town is only 3 miles long, the kids can only go so far before literally the sidewalk runs out, and you're like, okay, that's it, you have to turn around. You know, so there's only so many places that they can go.
The sidewalk didn't stop me.
Yeah, I was
Right.
about to say.
Yeah, I kinda lived in the forest when I was a kid, honestly.
Living in the forest is awesome. I lived in the jungle.
Except for rattlesnakes.
Podcast also lied to his parents about where he was.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Consistently.
Consistently.
But you hear from him once and that was it. It's like, yeah, I'm in space camp. Yeah, oh, I yo. And that's the only time you hear of them. That's it. Like, I would be so concerned. I'm like, you know what? Let me go check on my child.
I would have never gotten away, like, I would have never gotten away with that. My mother was always like, where are you? What are you doing? You know, always.
Not me.
I mean, with the way our technology now, it's like, I see
That's
your
true.
cell phone.
And that's, yeah, it's a different world these days, for sure.
I was a little curious. That was a slight, like, are you telling me they're not doing the where's? You must have said the space camp was in New York City. You know, that hot part
Yeah.
of the space shuttle program.
You mean your kids are not tracking you on Life 360? 'Cause I do. How do you not track your kids when your kids are like, Mom, I just saw you got into Atlanta. Are you okay? How was your flight?
Oh my gosh, they care so much. I love that for you.
I'm like, you guys are over 18, I'm over 18. How about you mind your business? I'm fine.
Did any of you though find Frozen Empire to be slightly overstuffed? Like they had, I don't think it's a bad movie. It was an enjoyable movie.
It was kind of very layered.
It had
Lot
a
going on.
lot.
Lot
Yeah.
going on.
You
Maybe
had the-
why Melody didn't quite play for everyone is
Oh,
I
that's
just
fair.
feel like there was enough time. Like if they just focused on one plot line, but you had Firebringers, you had getting all the it was a very stuffed cast.
That fire master ringer thing.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Camille Monaghan.
So-
You forgot
and-
about that, yeah.
And the whole little side humor thing with Trevor and Slimer was a bit forced.
I don't care, I loved it.
Yeah, I liked it,
Well,
but I
it's
didn't
just-
love it.
How did he get away so many times? I'm like, damn, Slimer.
I gotta, Trevor, the little, so the Afterlife had a lot of family dynamics, which was fairly new to this franchise, right? Like, it was about other things, but it wasn't really family dynamics. And then all of a sudden you have, that come up in Afterlife. I saw Frozen Empire as trying to kind of keep doing what was successful in Afterlife, but also be telling this new story with this new world. And so the little moments of like, Phoebe asking her mom, like, why are you even here? You're not a Ghostbuster, you're just a mom. And
Yeah,
which is
that
such a
was
great example of
chilly.
the teenager knowing just exactly where to stab you,
Yeah.
that it'll hurt the most. Or Trevor and the mom being like, yeah, you're an adult now, learn to do laundry.
Solve
Those
your own
moments,
problems.
those moments to me, they resonated fine because Afterlife had kind of opened the door
Yes.
to the family stuff. I definitely see the argument that like there's just so much stuffed in
Yeah.
it, but no one particular element felt out of place.
Yeah,
It's
nothing
just
was
a lot.
bad. It was just it's kinda like, you know,
Yeah.
Batman
You need a
Forever
rewatch,
in
is
a way.
what you're saying. You had to rewatch it.
Yeah.
I mean, because you have like the whole issue with the containment unit,
Which made sense.
which made sense. I mean, because they were like, yeah, we just kept stuffing them in there.
Yeah.
I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
What a great
That was the
bureaucratic
80s,
moment.
like solution to all environmental problems. Just keep shoving it in there. It'll be fine.
Remember like nuclear waste as a plot device
Yeah.
in like every ocean related thing?
Or in the
That's what it's like.
forest.
Yeah.
Quicksand.
But
This
yeah.
is how you get Tommy knockers.
And then they created a new, like, so how are you gonna move all these ghosts to this old one over here? It's like, oh, we're just gonna do it one trap at a time. How long is that gonna take? 7 years, 8, maybe 10. Okay, so you have all this new technology over here. You telling me it's gonna take me that long to move all these ghosts to here, from here? Okay.
In the grand scheme of government bureaucracies though, 7 years, I mean, that's reasonable. That's nothing.
The issue with that is it's more than one administration, so the next mayor's gonna say, cut funding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been,
No,
he's
but
been
Bill
trying to,
Atherton's been in New York's government since 1984. Like, he's not going anywhere.
and he's been trying to take down that firehouse brick by brick, you know,
Yeah.
since the first movie.
Like, you say one mean joke, about Dickless here, and all of a sudden you've got a 40-year vendetta that will not go away.
Right.
It's true, that man
The man has no
day.
day.
I mean, that grudge is holding strong.
Yes.
I mean, just let them do their job, okay?
I don't understand how he became. He seems so unlikable. How was he mayor? Like, how did?
He probably, you know,
He
said he'd
agreed
cut
to come
taxes.
back for another movie.
Okay, that's my turn. But I saw him and I was like, oh god.
Since
To
they're
be
gonna
fair,
have so much trouble.
he's unlikable in private. Like all the times that we see Peck, he's in like closed door meetings where he can be a jerk.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe he's different for the voters.
So like as Adrian is like my favorite movies is Real Genius. I'm like thinking, I'm just like, oh.
I mean, once you have, like a niche, you kind of
Yeah.
stay in that
Sure.
niche.
Character actor.
Yeah. But
He's got a good villain face.
He does.
Like Michael Shannon.
Good punchable villain.
But not a good villain, like he's a good villain that you hope trips and falls and blows up.
Right, yeah.
You don't want any kind of, glorious end for him. You want a horribly
He's an
embarrassing.
irritant.
Yes, he's an irritant villain.
I mean, I can see him campaigning on, I'm gonna hold businesses accountable for the things that they do to the rest of our city. I can 100% see
I
that
can see him
as
running
a-
on,
yeah.
I'm gonna cut waste in our city's budget.
Absolutely.
Starting with this one firehouse and its mysterious storage device.
see, at that point, it's like, okay, you bust those ghosts then. And it's
That's the next movie. It's William Atherton at age 300.
That would be hilarious.
Going around with the
That was
proton
actually one of my favorite characters in the 2016. I can't remember her name, but she was the mayor's assistant.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I loved her because she was like, oh no, they're
Cicely
they're-
Strong.
Cicely, no, but what was her character's name?
Who knows?
I can't remember. But I loved that in private, she was like, oh no, we want you to do this, but we're gonna arrest you.
completely
We're gonna
Yeah.
crucify you in public, but.
Yeah.
We're gonna fix this.
I loved Andy Garcia. You never call me the mayor from Jaws.
he was kind of the mayor of Jaws.
He was, but the fact that that's the meanest
Yeah,
thing
Cicely
that
Strong,
you can
Jennifer
call a
Lynch.
mayor.
Yeah,
is
Jennifer Lynch,
perfect.
Yeah, Jennifer Lynch.
I just wanna ask though, how do you feel about the transition moving from the movies with Extreme Ghostbusters trying to bring back the cartoon series and how that didn't seem to really catch on as much as Real Ghostbusters was like a huge phenomenon?
Sorry, what's your question? I didn't quite, I'm sorry, I didn't quite
What
understand.
your, like, why do you, I don't know if you guys have, why do you feel that like Extreme Ghostbusters didn't seem to quite catch on, trying to revive the cartoon series with real, like the way Real Ghostbusters did?
So you're talking about how the cartoon series did not catch?
That
Real
Real
Extreme
Ghostbusters,
Ghostbusters,
Extreme Ghostbusters
yeah.
didn't seem to really like catch fire like they were hoping, like, because Real Ghostbusters in the 80s was huge phenomenon. I mean, toys were everywhere, kids loved it.
Didn't have a cereal.
It didn't have our city hall played Winston, so.
I mean, some of it was, I was always more a fan of the movies than the cartoon, and
Me too.
and I think the cartoon was so much for kids. And, X-Men '97 showed you could take a cartoon, those kids, but it was also sort of treat kids like adults, and you could continue it, and it revived. And I just don't know if it caught that, it didn't pick up that we've all aged quite as well. And it's just the movies did a better job of capturing that nostalgia. So, not everything clicks, and maybe people were just tired of it. But, I mean, so much of the Ghostbusters depends on those humans versus the animated ghosts. When everyone's animated, it just doesn't quite have the same resonance.
Well, and I think a lot of it too is the timeliness. I mean, at that time, when was there a Ghostbusters movie? Like, Ghostbusters 2 was 1989, and then there was a long drought before another Ghostbusters movie. So there was nothing coming out in 1997 with Extreme Ghostbusters. And I think it was just kind of out of the public discourse. And that was before people could re-watch these things over and over and over as many
Yeah.
times as they wanted, and catch things on different viewings and really lock in that kind of fandom. I think it was maybe a timing thing.
Yeah, I enjoyed like the first creation of the cartoon series. Because you had, your Ray, your Venkman, your Egon. Of course, I never understood why Egon had blonde hair and a pompadour going on here.
None of us did. None of us
Because
did.
I was like, he looks like he's always in shock. Or slowly being abducted by aliens the way his hair is.
Is that like a Yu Yu Hakusho thing?
I don't know, but it was like a barrel on his head. I'm like, what's
Sounds
going
like
on?
gun, yeah.
I think that's where they got the inspiration for Fifth Element, the hairdo.
Ruby Rock's hair.
I think too, that was at a point, if you think about cartoons started doing more to appeal to the adults as well. I'm gonna use SpongeBob as an example. I love SpongeBob. People have very strong feelings one way or the other. But I love SpongeBob because my kids went on like a 2-year SpongeBob thing where that's all we watched. So thank God I love it. But I thought it was just as funny as they did. I may not have enjoyed the exact same jokes that they did, but they, like whoever was writing so, because they knew these kids were not watching by themselves. And I think that was a shift. If you look at the cartoons that I grew up with, there's a reason why we got up early and parents stayed in bed.
Yeah.
Because you look at them now and you're like, oh my God. Except Hanna-Barbera's. Those were.
So, the cartoons I grew up with were throwing adult humor all over the place, and that was like in the 70s and 60s, and it was hilarious because a lot of these were like World War II jokes, and they were very
Yeah,
adult, but then things kind of went like that.
Yes, it was much more
And I think it was
geared towards kids
right.
versus kids and adults. The
It
adults
was also a
stopped
lot to
watching.
do with kind of a morality police saying you can't do that in front of kids. You know what I mean? And kids didn't get these jokes. Kind of what. Yeah, you watch some of the old Bugs Bunny, Ducky Duck. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's
Yeah.
some serious dark humor here and there, and that kids don't get, but adults
Rocky
go.
and Bullwinkle too.
Yeah?
Oh my God.
Well, Cold War, Natasha and Boris. You know.
Reel us back in here.
Yeah, we kind of went
But it's
sideways.
like, it's
Sorry.
like we were talking about the cartoons, because,
Yeah.
like the 97 version came out, and I was like, I did not connect with it like I did with the ones in the 80s. Don't know why, but.
You were older.
Did you grow up and the cartoons not grow with you? Like, it didn't hit the same.
I mean, yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a comment about that, because I love the real Ghostbusters cartoons and I used to watch them all the time. And when I did see the Extreme Ghostbusters, I didn't like it because just animation had changed so much. I mean, it wasn't like the beautiful hand-drawn cartoons. I mean, these were, they seemed that they were, computer generated somehow. And that's one thing that I didn't like. It's something that failed to connect with me. The other thing was that the dialogue in the newer cartoons it's not up to the same standards as it was in the 80s. And I do want to disagree with one of the ladies on the panel that this cartoon was more geared towards kids. No, it stayed actually quite faithful to the spirit of the movies itself. And one of the writers for the cartoons, his name is Mark Scott Zickery, and he has a YouTube channel, and he wrote some of the episodes for it. And he was talking about there's a YouTube video that he's done that they tried to stay very, very faithful to the movies. They did not want to stray from it. So it was perhaps they didn't have the creepiness of Wankman in the movie, but other than that they weren't dumbing it down when it came to some of the scientific explanations, the dialogue, or anything like that. So it was because of that I think I think it appealed. I think because of that it appealed to a wider range of kids because of that. The new one. I mean, I was an adult by then, but it's not the same quality.
So we were talking about the science. Quick thing, my sister-in-law is a science teacher, high school. She teaches chemistry, physics, stuff like that. We were watching Ghostbusters, doing a rewatch of Ghostbusters. She's like, man, I love the science in this, And then we watched the all-female version. She was like, wait a minute, where did they stray from the science in this one? Did y'all notice that, or?
What do you mean?
Like, the science was a little bit more accurate, according to my sister-in-law, in the original Ghostbusters movies. But when she watched the all-female one, she was like, why does the science not working?
They
Something's
went a
not
little more
mapping.
rule of cool on some of the gadgets towards the end, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about science to weigh in on the accuracy.
There was a lot of there was a lot of fast talk, blah 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 blah, science that didn't really click together, and yeah.
It got a little Star Trek techno-babbly.
I was gonna mention Star Trek. Yeah.
Yeah.
Insert tech here.
Yes,
kind of a
insert
thing.
tech here, explain, keep moving, and hope nobody stops to really think about it.
Right.
Yeah, but when you like watch with a chemistry teacher who also does like physics, she'll sit there and stop it. It's like, what the hell did this say? And rewind it, and you're like, I'm not no longer entertained because you're trying to explain science to me. And then you're saying that this is false science. You have to suspend your disbelief.
Don't try to educate me. I'm trying to be entertained. Stop.
Right.
With do you think they're gonna make another Ghostbusters movie? You hope.
I hope so.
I hope
Yeah, I
so.
hope so too.
Good.
I hope they never stop.
Yeah, I like how they're giving it to giving it a new life with younger people,
Right.
who actually seem interesting. Like you want to see them go forward and become Ghostbusters, and you want to see what they're going to go through, because they're all different, and they all have different personalities. So I think that's one of the main things that I'm really anxious to see. I hope they do. I mean, it's Paul Rudd. Of course, you want to see Paul Rudd again.
And I want to see Grace grown up.
Of course,
You know,
Yeah.
I want to see her a young woman and owning it.
Yeah.
Because she is my favorite character.
Yes.
I think of the
I
series.
think
I really like her.
Sorry about the whining, y'all. It's been happening this whole weekend. I think there's a ghost. No, just kidding. I do want to see more movies. I just don't want it to end up like Fast and the Furious.
Yes.
Oh God.
I mean, that is fair. Quality over quantity.
I mean, I think they have
I'm okay with
potential.
this.
It's a ghost flying a plane. It's a ghost in a submarine.
I'm sorry, I would watch both of those. I just
Ghost
would.
in space?
I think the idea of a limited, like a Netflix series or something like that, like 8 episodes where they jump from city to city and you know, Paris and London and Peking and Moscow and all these old cities with history. I mean history, because I think that was just awesome.
That'd be
Well,
wonderful.
the thing is, it kind of forces. There are so many movies, TV shows, books about ghosts, right? So when you start thinking about a TV show or a play or a book, you have to really say, what makes this franchise unique?
Work.
What makes
Yeah.
it a Ghostbusters TM property? And to me, that's always been that the original and even all of the sequels, they do something very, very, very difficult, which is to blend horror and comedy so perfectly.
Yeah.
Which is
That
kinda
tone.
weird, because like if you look at the description of it, the first one was known as horror comedy, but like later on they started doing fantasy comedy, not horror comedy.
But the tone that they find, like as a writer, I think I'm always kind of chasing something like that, and it is so precise, and so, the only thing that I really can compare it to is the Haunted Mansion, where, like the ride, where they come up with like this perfect blend of like scariness and entertainment and jokes, right, and humor, puns. Like that's such a difficult line to walk successfully, and the fact that they do it as well as they did is just, and even though now the newer movies are a little different, they still find that tone, and I think that's incredible.
Anybody else want?
What makes it a Ghostbusters property to you?
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely, there is a certain magical tone. Horror comedy is achingly hard, and it usually doesn't do well. So it's like the one thing we can hang our little hook on that consistently performs. And I think the other thing is just, it never goes too broad. I mean, I would say 2016 probably goes the most into broad comedy, but it always has that broad comedy.
No pun intended.
Sorry.
Glad you laughed and I didn't.
Amazing.
But it has science. It has some genuine scares, even when you're an adult, and it does that so that the comedy always lands harder because you have that counterpoint, and it very rarely strays off that tone too much. And I think that's what
So
I think.
the closest thing I could think of, like horror comedy, was the Addams Family and
Yeah.
the Wednesday series and stuff like that. I loved those. And that's a different kind of comedy. There's a lot more improvisational feel, at least, to the comedy in Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
There's that, not slapstick really, but
It's like
slap in
side
your
quips.
face. What?
It's like side quips, like there's a lot
Yes.
of, there's
Yeah.
a lot of, like, something is happening and someone just throws out a little quip.
Right,
You're like,
yeah.
oh my god, that was really.
Hilarious,
Before
yeah.
the
Clever.
MCU, there are
Yeah.
Well, looks like our time is up, and could you please, thank our lovely panelists. So, where can we find you throughout this weekend?
My name's Michael Collins. Tomorrow you can find me. Tomorrow and Monday I'll be in the Marriott doing panels in the 300s and the 100s. I'm doing Wolverine. I'm doing a Wolverine panel tomorrow. I'm doing a whole lot of different fun things. So look at me there. Look at me at fandomhybrid.com with the rest of my pod mates. We do convention and Marvel and fantasy podcasts. So what's up?
I'm so sorry that the print is so teeny on your thing.
That's okay. I'm Melissa F. Olson. I think my books are available over at the Missing Volume in the dealer's hall. There are several Ghostbusters jokes, references that, like, I bend scenes around my will to insert weird Ghostbusters jokes in my books. But I'm going to be at the Boinking Beasties panel tomorrow night, which is sure to be entertaining. Otherwise, you can find me online. My email or my website is just my name, melissaffolson.com.
I have a author's table in the dealer's room. It is on the 3rd floor. It is A41. So keep going until the numbers turn, the letters turn right. That's me. And I have the They Walk Among Us Immortals in Urban Fantasy tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Should be fun. And you can always find me online at Jack's Books, jaxbooks.com.
I'm Lisa Manifold, and you can find me on Amazon. And it's Manifold, just like the exhaust. People always ask how to spell it. Yeah, just like the exhaust, or sprinkler manifold. I didn't realize there was one of those too. And tonight, I'm in here tonight for Lady Jane, but also Erotica, Trendy and Fun is in the writing track. It's an 11:30 panel over in Hyatt. I've done that like 3 or 4 years now.
It's the
That
After
is-
Dark panel.
That is a hilarious panel.
I will be also at my Lady Jane panel at
That's
the
gonna be
Cortland
awesome.
tonight. And then tomorrow I will be back here for the Chuckles and Belly Laughs in Urban Fantasy. And oh my god, I have so many panels, and I'll hopefully remember to show up at all of them. But if you want to find me online, I can be found on my socials, which are always at Total Recar, or you can find me on my website, www.rachelecar.com. The E is important because the OG Rachel Carr wrote vegan cookbooks, and you probably don't want to confuse us.
Okay, so I have a free giveaway. Those who raise their hand quickly at first, to answer my question, will get this free book. All right, what was Dana's son's name? I just think I saw you, young lady.
Oscar.
Come get your free book.
Come get your free Oscar.
Yeah, come get your free Oscar. So I hope y'all have a great time at DragonCon. If you want to listen to my podcast about all things horror, you should come scan the QR code and get some free stickers.
I'm available to guest on your podcast.
We talk about.
I'm available to guest on all podcasts.
We might talk about, cannibalism a lot.
Really? That is very specific.